welcome back to JV Foodie. Today is National Watermelon Day, and while you could totally eat watermelon on its own because it's delicious as long as you've picked a good one, why not try doing something with it? Zhuzh it up a little, use your watermelon in a different way. So I've got 2 different ways for you to use your watermelon this summer. Let's get this show on the road. Now, before we do anything else, obviously, we're going to have to cut up a watermelon. I have a medium-sized-ish seedless watermelon here. I say medium-ish because I don't really know. I also did not pick this watermelon out. If you've got questions about how to pick out a good watermelon, you're going to have to target those questions at my husband down in the comments below because he picked this one and it was a good one. So in order to make our lives easier to cut up this watermelon, I'm going to cut off both ends of the watermelon and then cut it in half so that gives me 2 flat surfaces to work with. But then I'm going to cut the rind off going from top to bottom, just leaving the nice pretty red flesh inside. Once you have gotten all the rind off, you are then going to cut up your watermelon flesh. That sounds weird to say, but I'm just going to keep saying it. You're going to cut it up into medium-ish cubes. You need about 10 cups worth of your chopped up watermelon. 6 cups for one recipe, 4 cups for another. For me, this watermelon was more than enough. We had leftover watermelon to snack on afterwards. The first recipe we are going to make is coming from Food Nouveau. It's a watermelon pudding, Sicilian watermelon pudding to be exact, and you are going to need 4 cups of coarsely chopped watermelon. The directions state to place the watermelon in a stand mixer and puree until smooth, or you could also do this with a hand mixer, but you'd have to do it in batches. So that's what I did. I placed our watermelon into my stand mixer bowl and turned my stand mixer on, and it was a horrible idea. I would not do this again. I ended up with watermelon everywhere. It may have been, to be fair, the fact that I used a paddle attachment. But to be honest, make your life easier and just go straight for the blender, which is exactly what I did next. So now my 4 cups of watermelon is in a blender. I puree this, it gets it nice and pureed and broken up and worked beautifully. The next step is you are going to need to pour your pureed watermelon through a fine mesh strainer into a measuring cup, discarding any remaining solids. So if you don't have a fine mesh strainer, you could also use cheesecloth. That would allow for all the liquid to fall through, but would take all of those solids and keep them locked in the cloth up top. I don't have a super fine mesh strainer, so I ran my liquid through twice, and that got a lot of the particulate out. You should end up with almost 3 cups or about 750 milliliters worth of watermelon juice at the end of this. Now that you have your strained watermelon juice, you need to ladle 2 tablespoons or 30 milliliters worth of your watermelon juice into a small bowl. And to that small bowl, you're going to add your 2 tablespoons or about 14 grams worth of cornstarch and mix that up until smooth. The remaining watermelon juice is going to go into a medium saucepan where you are going to bring that to a boil and then simmer for 5 minutes. So while our watermelon juice is coming up to a boil on the stove, we need to acquire ourselves some lemon juice, and you're going to need 1 lemon for this. So I have 1 lemon here. I'm going to cut off both ends just to make my life easier. You're going to juice 1 whole lemon and set this off to the side because we're going to need this lemon juice here in a few minutes. So once you've gotten your watermelon juice to a boil and you've let it simmer for 5 minutes, you are then going to add your 1/4 cup or 55 grams worth of granulated sugar and your vanilla seed. So the recipe actually calls for half a vanilla bean or 2 teaspoons or 10 milliliters of vanilla bean paste. So I did that. I have vanilla bean paste. I would highly recommend this, by the way. It is delicious. You're going to add your sugar and your vanilla bean to your simmered mixture and stir until the sugar is dissolved. Next thing after the sugar and the vanilla is you are going to stir your cornstarch mixture just 1 more time, making sure it's nice and mixed, and then that is going into the watermelon juice that is in the pot, and you're whisking it all together. Then you are going to continue this simmer, whisking occasionally for 3 more minutes, and at the end of that 3 minutes of simmering, you're going to add in just 2 teaspoons of freshly juiced lemon. So the recipe actually said to strain the lemon juice, which I did not do. It turned out fine, but if you're a stickler for the details, you want to strain your lemon juice first. Also, I almost forgot the lemon juice when doing this, so that's why it's not on the stove when I'm adding it, because I forgot. Now what you are going to do with this beautiful smelling mixture, it really did smell really good by the way, is you're going to pour the pudding, because it is a pudding, through a clean strainer into a measuring cup and then transfer that to small glass jars, glasses or ramekin, so that you can cover them and chill them and let them sit for at least 3 hours. At the time of us filming this, we did not have anything cohesive and small enough to look nice, so we just put this into one large Pyrex bowl to chill and get from later. And while that watermelon pudding chills in the fridge for at least 3 hours or overnight, as in what happened with us, let's make some watermelon granita. Before we go any further, this watermelon granita is coming from Eat Well 101. It's 3 ingredients, it's really simple, and since we already have our watermelon cut up, we have to do just a little bit more prep work, okay? So instead of 1 lemon like the recipe calls, we thought it'd be interesting to use limes. So I have 3 limes. I ended up actually only needing a lime and a half for this, so I would stick with just 2, cutting them in half and then juicing them for their delicious limey juice. By the way, because I realized I didn't give it to you, it's about 60 milliliters worth of lime juice. So our blender's back, it's been cleaned and ready to go, and you are going to just toss everything into it. So you need 6 cups of your diced watermelon, that's 60 milliliters of lime juice or lemon juice if you want to use lemons, that's fine. And then 1/3 a cup or about 67 grams worth of sugar, or you could use honey according to the recipe, and then you're just going to blendy blend until nice and smooth and pureed. Now our blender was not thrilled with the idea of all this watermelon with such little liquid, but it was fine. I just needed to agitate it a little. If this happens to you, there's a lot of water and liquid in watermelon, so just agitate it a little, get it to move a little bit, and you should be good to go. As with the previous recipe, you're going to want to strain this mixture through a fine mesh strainer or a sieve so that you can get rid of all of that watermelon particulate. Cellulose isn't always like appetizing in some things, and like granita, you don't want that. You just want the liquid to freeze. So you're going to run this through a fine mesh strainer or sieve. I had a fine mesh strainer, and you're going to want to do this in batches so that you don't overflow whatever it is you are running the liquid through. And also, just like last time, I ran my liquid through twice just to make sure I picked everything up, because I do not have a super fine mesh strainer, and you could see some of the particulate got in there still, but it was okay. Once you have your strained liquid, the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to add this to a 9 by 13 inch casserole dish, cover it with plastic wrap, and freeze for at least 4 hours or until solid. Now, we needed to let both of these sit overnight, so we came back the next day, and first up, let's look at the Sicilian watermelon pudding. So to serve our Sicilian watermelon pudding, you are going to get it out of the fridge. Like I said, ours sat overnight, and then since we put it in just one giant bowl, I gave this a stir before putting it into our glass container. So I filled my glass container up about halfway, and then I topped this off with some whipped cream. So I cheated, I used it from a can, because who has time to make homemade whipped cream? I mean, sometimes it's good, but to top it off with whipped cream, the suggestion was also to top it with some crushed pistachios, which we did not have, but this was really good with just the whipped cream on top. I will say it was a little liquidy. For me, as an American, when I think of pudding, I'm thinking of something with a much thicker consistency, almost maybe like a custard. I guess that's what I'm thinking of, and this was much thinner. I also may have messed this up by not letting it set in its individual glasses. So if I were going to do this again, I would have it set up in the individual glasses so that you didn't have to disturb it as much to transfer from one vessel to another. But this was really good. Really, really, really good. This would be good like with some ice cream, some vanilla ice cream as well. Just a suggestion. Up next are granita. So the granita sat overnight as well, and then essentially you just scrape this. So you can scrape this with 2 forks into fine crumbs, or I tried a variety of things. I used my scraper tool and I tried that. I tried spoons. However, you can basically get it to like scrape up into almost like a shaved ice consistency. That'll get the job done. And once I felt like I had enough scraped granita, I ended up just putting that all into a cup for us to enjoy. Now the granita was good. It's very refreshing. So if it's really hot out like it has been where I live, or you just feel like you want something really cold, this is a really good dessert to have on hand, and it's so simple to to make. Remember, it was only like 3 ingredients. Now, as we were eating this, we decided that it was missing just a little something. So we added tequila. I would say adding the tequila actually just took it up one more extra notch, and maybe we just ended up making a shaved ice version of a watermelon margarita, but it was delicious. If we were going to continue to eat this granita, I would have just continued to add tequila to it and gave myself a little treat at night. So there's just a little suggestion for you. Side note to a side note, also what was really good with a granita, vanilla ice cream. Vanilla ice cream apparently just goes with everything right now. The Sicilian watermelon pudding, the granita, it's all delicious. Give it a try. So whether or not you end up making either of these, or you just end up enjoying your watermelon by itself, which is totally acceptable because watermelon can be delicious. I hope you enjoy National Watermelon Day, and until next time, bye.